Welcome to 1991 Movie Rewind, a podcast where we watch and review every movie released in 1991. From the all-time greatest classics to the critically panned and everything in between. We'll rediscover forgotten fan favorites and uncover hidden gems as we explore the depths of direct-to-video. Join us in our celebration of the fun, unique, and diverse films of this highly underrated year. This week, we watched Night on Earth.
Nikki.
And this is John, and thank you for joining us on 1991 Movie Rewind. Night on Earth chronicles 5 different cab drivers in 5 different cities across the globe in a single night, starting at dusk in Los Angeles, then progressing through New York, Paris, Rome, and driving until dawn in Helsinki. The film offers a glimpse into their meaningful fares. Screenplay by Jim Jarmusch, directed by Jim Jarmusch, and shown at the New York Film Festival on October 4th, 1991. So have you seen Night on Earth before?
No, I have not.
Really? This is probably the first movie where I have seen it before and you have not.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, back when I was first getting into movies around high school time, that's when I, was trying to explore some of the art house stuff and the indie, cult classic type things, and this is one of the ones that I picked up. I didn't remember hardly anything from it. I just remembered the basic concept of it. I didn't remember any of the details of the different scenes, but I've at least seen it before, so yeah. But yeah, this is one that probably is typically known as a 1992 movie to most people, but it was first shown in public somewhere in 1991, which is one of our criteria for including it on the list, if anyone's curious. I think that's like the second movie in a row where we've had that happen, where it's mass release in 1992, but initial release somewhere in 1991, which makes it eligible for us. Mm-hmm. So what did you think as a first-time viewer?
I mean, it got a little long.
Yeah.
There was a couple of vignettes that I was just like, okay, can this end? Yeah,
I think, so I didn't want to give too much detail of the plot in the summary and break down what happens in each of the 5 cities, because I didn't want the summary to get too long either, right?
Yeah.
But they're basically 5 self-contained stories that just all deal with cab drivers and a specific customer that they pick up in their respective city.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's basically just an episodic film.
Yeah, like Paris Je T'aime. Except they're all directed by the same director.
Yeah, or like even Creep Show, if you want to go a different direction with it, where you have like this theme and then, it's all put together. But this time, it's all written and directed by the same guy. I think what really hurts the film most is the order in which they choose to put these stories. I don't know if you agree with that, but I think
I get it, because they start from like West Coast and then they start going east.
Right. Yeah, from a time perspective, it works, but in terms of what the stories are, they end on the weakest one by far.
Yeah, I mean, that one was just more sad than anything.
Yeah.
Or just serious. Like the other ones, I mean, this is technically supposed to be like a comedy, right?
I don't know if it's specifically marketed that way, or if it's like
I don't know. When I look it up, it
drama.
says it's called an art comedy drama. So okay, so yeah. So I mean, it had the drama in that last one.
Yeah, to go back to the previous example of like V.R. Warshawski, where that was in our video store under comedy.
Yeah.
This was in our video store under like the alternative section.
Right, yeah.
The indie, so it wasn't,
the indie section. Yeah.
So it didn't get that, it didn't
I'm
get
surprised
the comedy
I didn't
moniker.
watch it, because that was like my favorite section when I was in high school.
Yeah. And plus it has like, Winona Ryder in the first sequence.
Right.
So you think that would maybe be a little bit of appeal to us kids who grew up with Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands and whatnot. But we start in New York, L.A. with Winona Ryder. She's the cab driver in the first part. And her story is basically that she's picking up a casting agent at the airport, played by Jenna Rollins. And she has her life all figured out. She wants to be a mechanic, and she wants to get married and all this kind of stuff. And the casting director is looking for a fresh-faced, unknown actress to be in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she's observing this crude behavior by Winona Ryder's character, and seems like she's perfect for the role. And then
she's trying to cast. Yeah, and she just tries to convince her to audition.
Or even just be in the movie.
Yeah, just automatically star in it. Like, don't you want to be a star? You're in LA.
Right.
That was the story.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, it was interesting because I didn't really, again, remember the scene too much. And so I didn't know how it was going to end, if she was even going to broach that subject, or if that was going to be something where the audience can clearly see that Winona Ryder's character is someone that should be considered. But would Jenna Rollins' character consider that as well? Mm-hmm. Or would they even bring it up, or would they even have that conversation? But they do at the very end. And it turns out that, she does not want to be an actress. She doesn't want to uproot her life because everything's going perfectly for her right now. Mm-hmm. And she wants to be a mechanic, and she has this plan, and that would deviate from the plan, which is really interesting. And that kind of, that's kind of simplifying the thing. I mean, basically during the course of the cab ride, because it is a very long cab ride, they're going from, I'm not sure which airport, if it's LAX.
I'm assuming LAX. To Beverly Hills, like the hills.
To Beverly Hills.
I mean,
it's the quietest I've ever seen any airport. I know they say it's like the executive terminal, which maybe doesn't even exist I don't know.
I mean, 30 years ago, I have no idea. But it also seemed like it was really late at night.
Well, it starts around like dusk time. I know that before we even get to the LA scene, we see the globe going around, and we hear Tom Waits' song,
music,
Good Old World. And then it shows a wall of clocks. So it gave the time. I just didn't happen to write down that.
I think it was 10 o'clock or something.
New York was 10, so I think this might have been 7 or 8.
Okay. Or 7, because it's 3 hours time difference. It just seemed, I mean, just being in LA traffic, and then I don't know how it is at 7 p.m. on whatever day, but I would assume it would be really busy.
Right. Yeah,
and it didn't look like it was.
Yeah, nothing was busy at all.
But I don't know what it was like 30 years ago, the LA traffic, but...
It also could have been an independent, a more independent airport or terminal or something, because they said executive terminal. And her character gets out of a private jet and has to walk along the runway.
So, yeah,
right? So
she
didn't,
there's a lot
into an airport. She exited onto concrete, so...
Yeah, there's a lot of private...
Yeah, a lot of private jets along the way. Yeah,
private jets and stuff being flown in and out there. So maybe that's where... Because in the beginning, Winona Ryder, her name is Corky.
Yeah.
She drops off, a band, a well-known band. So that could have been a smaller airport, way further in the suburbs of LA. That just, handles... quote famous people. I don't know.
Yeah. So
it didn't say LAX or whatever.
Quick side note though.
But it was a long trip.
About that band.
Okay.
They're greeted by their rock manager, who's mad at them for being late and whatever. That was played by Lisanne Falk, who was Winona Ryder's co-star in Heathers. It was Heather McNamara.
Which Heather is that?
I don't.
The first Heather that died.
I'd have to look at the picture again. I don't remember anymore.
Oh, okay.
But she doesn't have much screen time and doesn't have much face time in this movie. But I just thought it was interesting that 2 members of Heathers are right there. Anyway, but we're sort of oversimplifying the plot. But the main cusp of the conversation wasn't so much about what each person wanted to get out of life. It was more them bonding about their own shared experiences in a sense, and like going after what they want, and doing the things that make them happy. Like, I don't know, there's the whole purpose of this movie is to have these strangers find commonality. That's what is trying to be conveyed here, I think, is that, you know, they're trying to find these two people from separate worlds, or seemingly separate worlds, and find some sort of like connection, or, you know, bonding. And so that's, you know, that's what happens in the meantime. And then at the end, then they do their little exchange, and Winona denies the offer. So
that's that vignette. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
pretty
that.
much.
I mean, the one other thing I will say is that the cinematography in this, so it's almost all taking place in front,
like a GoPro type of that's what kind of,
it's like a rig. Yeah, so I think either the camera is like mounted on the hood, or it's mounted on a car, and the cab is actually being towed by another car, right? So it's like, could be one of those types of things. But each sequence is shot differently. In this case, it happened to be basically just like 3 camera angles, where you have like the close-up shot of Winona, and you have the close-up shot of
like the passenger seat,
and then you have the 2 shot, and then occasionally you'll have like insert shots of her rummaging around in the front seat of her
like
car,
she has like a tape player and like
whatever.
Random garbage and whatever on the side.
Or you also get to see, like, you know, some rundown streets, you know, as they pass through. And that seemed to be something of a recurring theme as well, where they
would have to have multiple cameras pointing at while she's driving.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, other sequences handle, like, even though like every segment is shot and is self-contained largely in a taxi cab, they found different ways to shoot each sequence. You know, they found a way to have different options and shoot it differently. So, like, New York one adds, you know, the view from the back and looking over the shoulder at Helmet, who's the cab driver. But then, yeah, like I was about to say, is the city streets, it seemed like they focused a lot more on like the rundown parts, or the graffiti filled parts, or, you know, the sort of dilapidated buildings, at least in LA and New York.
I mean, also Paris, because it kind of looked
and
as
sort
if...
of Rome too.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, if we just didn't notice, or I didn't notice it as much, just because they're European cities that we don't have as much familiarity with in pop culture, and it just has that, you know, mysticism of being a European city, and so it's more naturally beautiful just because of that. And
because
it's easier to ignore the
like the cobblestone streets and stuff like that, stuff that we don't have, you know, now or ever had like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, I'm focusing more on the beauty
Rome,
than...
I mean, just driving down Rome in those very, very tiny streets, Yeah,
that's why I focused a lot more on, too. It's like these tiny little streets.
That's how it is now. I mean, that's why you need, like, either you have to have, like, a tiny car to drive around there, or, like, you know, a moped or something.
Right.
To get through these very tiny streets. You can't have, like, a Ford F-150 driving down these streets.
It's absolutely impossible. So, but yeah, I mean, is that... we kind of oversimplified the stuff, but I mean, the only other thing I'd say is, like, I really didn't like what Winona Ryder was doing with her performance. I don't know. I just she
like,
just
you think she was trying too hard to be like a tomboyish character, or trying to be tough?
Yes, I think she took it like to a cartoony level. It's like, oh, look at me, I'm over here, I'm gonna spit and curse and stuff. Hey, lady. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, because she was kind of... The way she was talking to Jenna Rollins, she's like, I don't give a fuck, and blah, blah. Like, she was swearing, and, like, just... She didn't give a... She really didn't care, like, how she was acting in front of, like, a client. Or, I don't know, a person that you... A customer, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
But, I mean, what do I know? I mean, some cabbies are like that, and some
for
aren't.
sure. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It just seemed like she was putting on a bad accent rather than giving a...
She was trying too hard?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's I don't know. Anyway, so we move over to New York next, which is at 10 p.m. So in between each one, we go back to the wall clocks, and then it goes into a position in the globe, and then the city lights up, and then it gets into the thing. Those transitions, like, I understand the clocks. Mm-hmm. I don't think the globe part was necessary, and maybe that's just me nitpicking things. But, like, the clocks have the cities underneath.
Yeah, the cities' names on the walls.
And so then when they go to the globe and they light up the city, like the dot that represents the city, it then fades into the scene.
City. Like, it doesn't do like a...
It doesn't match anything. Like, the light doesn't match anything when they fade in. So it's like a useless
transition. It doesn't do like a full-on zoom-in thing, like from Earth.
Right, yeah, it doesn't do anything like that
zoom in
either.
all the way through like clouds and stuff, and then you see a bunch of buildings, and then now you're in that city.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't do that.
It just shows the Earth a little tiny pinpoint saying, here's where we're going next.
Yeah.
And then now we're there.
Yeah, so it's like, here's where we're going. Here's the next shot showing you here's where we're going, and then we're there. I don't think you needed the two, but like if they would have like matched the light with, let's say, a light post or a stoplight or anything, match the positioning of the light with something to sort of tie it in more, then it would make sense. But they didn't do that, or Jarmusch didn't do that. Anyway, New York is my favorite one.
Oh yeah, mine too. I think this is probably the favorite for anyone who would watch this.
I would imagine. I mean, obviously, maybe, based off of your personal experiences in life, you may connect with other scenes more. Who knows? But just in terms of like a writing and character level, this was the best. So we have Giancarlo Esposito, who's trying to hail a cab, can't get anybody to pick him up.
Because he's going to... Well, not even
probably
that.
Because he's black, for one.
But, I mean...
They sort of insinuate that, but they don't.
I think that's just... When watching that whole scene, trying to hail a cab, gave me, like, flashbacks of me trying to hail a cab. Because you'll be standing there for, like,
depends
hours.
On the time of day. And I shouldn't say he's black, because he's not black, but... he's Latin. But anyway, because he's a person of color trying to hail a cab, I think that...
I don't even... I mean, that could have been that, but I also feel like how... This is probably how it is. Well, I mean, at this time period, even up until like 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
Where cabbies will just drive past you and not give a shit about you, depending on the time of day. Because
I mean, this is like 10 p.m., which is like sort of pure pick up the drunk starting time, I would think. So you'd think that there'd be a lot of cabs out there trying
that
to
want to get, I mean, some of them are probably like, I'm going home now. I don't want to pick anyone up.
Yeah, that could be too.
That could also be it. But
one of them stops and he says he wants to go to Brooklyn.
Before that, someone, like a cab does stop and he says Brooklyn, and then the cab driver's like, nope.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like that.
And he's in Manhattan trying to get to Brooklyn, which I don't know much about New York
just
geography.
crossing a bridge is
know,
like
it's
a pain in the
borough.
ass. Yeah.
So it's a long drive. So, so the one cab driver denies him, and then he finally gets into another cab,
right?
Which is helmed by Helmut, a German immigrant who this is basically his first job and first fare, most likely. And
yeah, because he does not know how to drive a car. And I was thinking, wouldn't you have to take a test or something to... Well,
at that time...
I mean, to get your driver's license.
Who knows?
But to even get a driver's license, you have to take a test.
Yeah. Yeah, who knows? It doesn't. It doesn't.
And he just honestly does not know how to drive.
No, he's starting and stopping, and so like a lot of jutting.
He thinks he's driving stick.
Yes,
because he keeps on saying it's automatic. It's automatic. I don't know automatic.
And so he's treating it like a stick because he's like trying to
he's using...
hitting the brake like a clutch.
Yes.
Yeah. So he knows how to drive. Maybe he got his driver's license off of a stick.
Maybe.
So there you go.
Okay.
But anyway. Can't handle it. Giancarlo threatens to get out of the cab, but Helmut pleads with him. He's like, I really, help me. Like, I need this. And so basically he agrees.
Yeah, he's just like, can you take me to Brooklyn? And then Helmut doesn't even know where Brooklyn is.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, I'll drive myself. You'll still get the money or whatever. I just want to get home. I'll drive. You just watch and learn.
Right.
And so he becomes Helmet's
the teacher. Yes.
And then they get to talking about their life experiences, of course, again, and life and what brought Helmet to New York and what he used to do in the past in Germany. And he was a circus clown back then. So he plays like a double recorder thing, and he has like the red nose and whatnot. And at some point, Giancarlo, whose character's name is Yo-Yo, because they make a big deal of making fun of Helmet's name.
Chunk of it making fun of each other's names, because Helmet and Yo-Yo's like, oh, so like a literal helmet,
right?
Like a lampshade. So he starts calling him Lampshade.
Yeah.
But then Helmet is like, well, then what's your name? And he goes, Yo-Yo. And then Helmet starts laughing, and he's like, that's a toy.
Yeah, like the children's toy. He's like, no, completely different.
Yeah.
And they're like wearing similar hats and stuff like that.
Yeah, they make fun of each other's names, and they start, like they have a somewhat friendship out of this. Yeah.
It was a very nice bonding experience from them. Like, they're wearing the same hats. They're talking about, similar life experiences and whatnot. And at some point, Yo-Yo sees Rosie Perez on the street, who is his sister-in-law, Angela, and basically abducts her for some reason. Yeah,
he picks her up. He's like, why is she... They don't even explain...
They don't explain why he has to bring her home.
Yeah, because he's just like, why is she over here? Like, she's in Manhattan. Like, she's not supposed to leave Brooklyn. So he's like, let me take her home, because I guess they live in the same apartment complex.
Yeah, something like that.
Or in the same apartment. I don't know.
I mean, she was like going somewhere. It's not like she would look lost.
Yeah, she was walking somewhere.
And they didn't. Yeah, they never explained.
He's like, why is she here?
They never explained why she was there. They never explained why he has to bring her back.
I think he's just mad at her because she is his brother's wife, and apparently she's just supposed to be home with her husband.
Something like that. I wish they would have spent a little bit of time doing it.
Yeah, they didn't explain why.
And said virtually the entire conversation between those two is just yelling and saying,
it's just
fuck
them,
you, shut up, fuck you, shut up.
Yeah, she's like, you're an asshole, you're like, why are you doing this? I don't know.
Yeah. It was a shame. That's the one part that I wish was done differently, because Rosie Perez is awesome and not utilized, not given a character. She
was just yelling in the back seat saying, I don't know, you're an asshole, and then telling him to shut up.
So that was the one weird part for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it. I mean, they drop, you drop. Okay, here's the thing I also like about the movie is that they finish the two character stories, and then there's always a little bit of like a coda at the end, right? There's like a little bit to show.
Yeah, after
beyond the ending.
Yeah, after they showed them, dropping off their passenger.
Yeah. So Yo-Yo gets out, teaches Helmet about fares and always count your money before the passenger leaves, because he was trying to cheat him out of his $13.
Yeah, the fare from
Manhattan
to Brooklyn is $13 at this stage, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, amazing. I don't know, just nowadays that would be like $50 or something.
They showed the gas price in the LA segment as they drove past, and it was like under $1 a gallon still.
And then I think for LA, the fare from whatever
I didn't write down
airport,
what the fare was.
It was like $30-something.
Maybe, yeah, that could be.
And
so
I guess I thought that was a fair price, because it seemed like they were going a really a far distance.
But yeah, so
from Manhattan to Brooklyn, $13.
Gives them one more lesson about count your money, because I only gave you 12, but I wouted it up, so you wouldn't have known unless you counted it out. So count out your fares, and then tries to teach them how to get back to Manhattan. Helmet does not absorb it at all, and he gets lost, and so you just see him kind of like he's looking at the city in wonder, and slowly getting sadder and sadder, realizing that he's like lost but still like amazed by all the sights around him. So
yeah,
that's sort of how it ends. You really start to feel bad for Helmet at that point, or I did. Yeah,
I mean, I think well, because then Yo-Yo was like, just take this to that busy street up there and then ask someone how to get back.
Yeah,
but
make a right and ask somebody.
Yeah,
and he makes a left.
He makes a left, and then he's like
and
circling
he doesn't
around.
ask anybody.
And then they show, that whatever neighborhood in Brooklyn they're in didn't say.
No.
But, I mean, they show there's like police cars driving by. There was like a house fire. There's sirens
vehicle.
and sirens everywhere. And he's just watching and seeing what's going on. And he's like, oh, New York.
Yeah. And then, it's the epitome. It's like, it's a beautiful place, but there's a lot of troubles there too.
Yeah.
And then we get, the Tom Waits instrumental. By the way, Tom Waits did all of the music in this movie, as far as I know. He's credited as the, composer for this. So if you don't like Tom Waits, then you're not going to have a good time with most of the music. Just a fair warning. Move on to Paris.
I mean, it's not throughout the entire movie. It's just in between each segment.
Very in your face at the beginning, though.
Oh yeah.
He does the super gruff singing of the good old world song, and you get like the discordant guitar riffs and squealings and whatnot, and so. Then we go to Paris, where his music probably fits a little bit best because there are like more like accordions.
Mm-hmm.
In there. And in this case, we're already in the cab with the cab driver, who doesn't get a name, as far as I could tell. He doesn't get one in the credits. It's a person, actor by the name of Isaac de Buncole? Buncole? I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah.
He's a French actor who was born in the Ivory Coast. And he has two ambassadors to Cameroon in his cab at the start, and they're
making fun of him,
giving him all kinds of shit because if he's from Ivory Coast, or they're trying to guess where he was from because he clearly was not from a country as good as theirs,
right?
And they are very important people with this very important briefcase.
I mean,
and they're basically
they're speaking. Okay,
classist.
They're speaking French, and
as a lot of African nations do. Actually.
Yeah, I know that, but are they speaking French? So they think that this driver is not a French speaker. So they're, how people will speak a different language. Just they assume that the other person won't know what they're saying. That's what I'm trying to ask, I guess.
No, I don't think that's
so they're just
part of it. I think they're just being
blatantly
obnoxious.
Just because they're saying all this stuff in French, and then the cab driver is just silently driving them to wherever they're supposed to be going, not really reacting, but then eventually reacting, and he kicks him out.
Yeah, he eventually kicks him out, and
because they keep on they're just like making fun of him. And they're wondering where he came from. They're like naming other countries, and then they get to Ivory Coast, and then that's when the driver kind of looks up, and they're like, "Oh, he's from the Ivory Coast."
Yeah, I think part of it is that they're constantly talking, and so he doesn't have a chance to get a word in edgewise if he wanted to. I think part of it is that he's trying to be a good customer service rep, and he's like grinning and smiling and bearing a lot of the abuse because he probably sees it all the time. Plus it's like 4 a.m. in this Paris segment, so they're probably very much drunk, and he knows that, and so that's probably part of the obnoxious behavior. But at some point he basically gets insulted, and they treat Ivory Coast as like this second rate country compared to wherever they're from, which I think is Cameroon. Or they're just the ambassadors to Cameroon, and they happen to be in Paris. I didn't fully capture what that was. And so whatever it is, he gets insulted and kicks them out of the cab. Mm-hmm. So that's our introduction to this guy. And then they're kicked out of the cab in a place where there are literal street sweepers.
Yeah.
Which is weird. It's like not like, a vehicle with brush, but two people with like brushes who are manually sweeping the road for some reason in that little intersection where they get dropped off. That was just weird to see. Maybe that's a common thing, or maybe there's specific things that they do.
Overnight. I know I know in New Orleans they sort of do that, but I don't know if they do that every single night.
Yeah, it's just a cool little quirk for me to see. And then he picks up his next fare, which is a blind girl, who before she gets in the cab, he's thinking to himself, well, this girl won't give me any shit, so I'll pick her up.
She's blind.
Yeah, and then she immediately calls him an asshole.
Right.
As she's getting in.
Because, she
drives
was
too close.
Yeah,
I think,
she's like, you almost ran me over, you dumbass.
Yeah. So.
And then then she sings, but he's kind of like asking her like ignorant questions, I guess.
He's trying to learn more about what it means to be blind, I guess.
Yeah.
And some of the things
just like, I can do, because he's like, do you go to the movies? And she's like, yeah, of course I would go to the movies. But he's like, why and how? Because you can't see.
Right.
And she's like, I can hear.
Yeah, I can feel more than you will ever be able to feel.
Right.
Yeah, she gets very combative with him, very caustic, and tired of his shit. Probably because she's heard it a million times before.
Yeah,
in
probably.
Her life.
And then
but he's like, just curious,
not again.
and it seems like he's also just trying to keep the conversation going because he has, like a crush on her or something. That's the impression I kind of got too. It's like, well, I have this cute girl in my cab. I need to keep the conversation going, so she might be interested in me or something. And then obviously,
that's annoying.
Just the discussion of
it sounds annoying to me. I don't.
Oh sure, yeah.
I don't like when anyone talks to me, so I'm just like, I would be like that too. I would just give one word answers and be like, "Can you just please leave me alone?" Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like how she is. She's just sitting there silently. And then there's like a part where she's trying to put her lipstick on. Like she has her own way of putting lipstick on. And he's watching her.
Yeah, he's not
even paying attention to the road.
No. Which lead me to write down the note that he has an unexplained bandage over one of his eyes. So,
like you think he gets into accidents?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's not super careful. I don't know. But yeah, he's really not looking at the road enough, which always makes me very nervous in movies. Just I've been in a bad car accident, and so like seeing behavior that could cause a car accident gives me like the jitters. And near the end, he does get into a small crash after she gets dropped off. Because he's watching her leave and doesn't pay attention and drives right into another car.
She wants to get... I forgot where exactly, but she wants to get dropped off besides a canal.
Yeah.
And she just... And he watches her walk alongside this canal.
Right. And then crashes into another car, which made...
Well, he's watching her walk away. And then she hears the crash and stops and kind of smiles because she can tell that it was the cab driver.
Yeah. It's like, this dumbass. And then the other person in the other car says, "What are you, blind?"
Yes.
So, a fitting end to that. So.
I was thinking, like, who's out at, like, 4 or 5 in the morning during this time, but...
Yeah, they don't explain most of the reasonings behind why these people are where they are, so whatever. So that's how Paris goes, and you sort of get to see a little bit of like the smaller streets that you see that are common in Europe, but when you get to the next section in Rome, which also takes place in 4 a.m.
Yeah,
they really focus on
the smaller streets, yeah. So, I mean, Rome is filled with those types of streets.
Yes. And I think this is another situation where
he's like taking back road. This is where I was also thinking, is he taking like a specific route? And why? Because there's a part where he's like, oh, there's a wall here today. There wasn't one here yesterday.
Right. I don't know how much of that was like...
This is just some specific route he takes in the morning hours just to, like, bide his time. Like, he's bored.
Or save time to get to different places.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or it could be the fact that he's wearing sunglasses at night and he doesn't fully know where he's going because he can't.
Well, yeah, he's driving the wrong way on one-way streets, and then there's even cars that are still driving the right way on the one-way, and it's a one-laned, tiny, very narrow street.
Yeah.
So these cars are honking at him, and he's just, he doesn't care.
Yeah, no, he gives no shits whatsoever. Just like. That's probably the most cab drivery behavior we see in all the segments. You don't see that in New York because it's not a traditional New York cab driver, right?
Yeah.
It's the passenger driving. So,
yeah.
He needs to be careful because he cannot crash this car and hurt Helmet. But yeah, here in Rome, this is probably the most traditional, what we know as cab driver craziness going on here. What I was going to say is this is also another good example of how the movie is shot differently in the different segments because there are a lot more exterior shots in the Rome segment than any other.
Yeah.
Because you need to see the streets, you need to see all the roundabouts and things like that he's going through to understand what's supposed to be some of the comedy of the situation. I
was annoyed.
So, okay. The cab driver is Roberto Benigni. I think it's probably important to mention that now that you said that you're annoyed.
Yeah.
Because he is something of a polarizing person. And he talks all the time.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, is he playing himself? Because I know how he is.
I have a feeling
outside of acting.
I have a feeling it's like a mix between... he probably had like beats to hit... But I think he had a lot of leeway to sort of improvise a lot of the...
Yeah, just him talking to himself and
yes.
whatever. And just nonstop talking and trying to be eccentric. And to me, it's annoying.
Yeah, it's... If there were pauses and beats into it, I think it would have been better.
It's just nonstop.
But
just,
it's absolutely...
And then he's singing and...
nonstop.
Yeah. And then I was like, is this him playing himself because he is annoying? Because I mean, just from seeing how he reacted at the Oscars, that whatever that year he won,
it would have been like 97. I
think, when he's jumping up on the chair and acting up. At that time, everyone's like, "Oh, he did a thing that no one else has really done."
Yeah,
and he's trying to be like a wild and eccentric type of guy, but then I was like, okay, is this just him being him?
It very well could be. I think it's like inspired by him. So
I've never seen him. I've only seen him in this movie, and then Life is Beautiful.
Life is Beautiful. I mean,
but that movie is different than this.
Much different. We'll talk about that another time, though, because both Roberto and the other lead in this segment, Paolo Bonicelli, are in the 1991 movie Johnny Stecchino. So we'll get to see that and we can talk about them in more detail. But I think you have something to that because Benigni was also in Jarmusch's other movie before this called Down by Law.
Okay.
And so they had prior working experience, and so I'm sure this segment was written for him with his voice in mind. And so it was meant to be very much inspired by Benigni or something he could play around with. Almost had to be. Because Jarmusch works with a lot of the same people multiple times.
Yeah.
And so, he keeps them in mind for future projects, and I'm sure that's what inspired this. So this fair in this one is...
he picks up
someone
who's priest.
Like a bishop who always says that he's not actually a bishop, but we don't learn what that means We don't know if that means like he's dressed up and he's an actor who's like getting off of work, or if he's.
I
like,
thought he was like
he's dressed up that
I think he was
way,
on
or...
his way to become one. That's what I
or if
thought.
he was just a different rank within the church. They
Yeah.
don't explain because Benigni won't shut up.
Yeah.
They don't let him explain.
He just says, because he's the priest is dressed up like a priest would dress up, you know, in the garb.
Yeah.
And then Roberto Benigni, they don't even he doesn't have a name. He's just the cab driver.
Yeah.
He's also
listed as driver Rome.
Yeah,
Yep.
he also does not get a name.
Yeah, I don't think he does.
And he's like, priestly, whatever bishop guy.
He calls him father. Yeah, he calls him father all the time.
And that's when he decides to just confess, like, all these things that he did, like, all his sexual things that he's done throughout his life. And then this poor guy.
Yeah, so, well, before I get to that, just probably, I don't know. I don't know if it's like the most, I don't know how to explain it. When the bishop gets picked up, he plays around with him. Remember that? Because it's in this little like place where there's a statue.
It's like
in
a
the middle,
taxi
it's like
stand,
a circular
I
thing.
think.
It could be like a circular taxi stand or something.
Yeah.
And so the bishop is on one side, the car stops on one side, the bishop starts to walk towards the car, and he does the same, that standard thing where you pull away.
Yeah.
And so he's like
trying
circling
to open
around, and the
if
bishop's
my
circling
cab driver
around.
did that to me, I'd be like, okay, forget you. I'll wait another million years for another good cab driver.
Yeah.
Or just walk at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's another example of like the jokiness, but I was trying
It's
to think
annoying.
of like the good word for it, like mad. It's not madcap. It's goofball, screwball, whatever you want to call it.
It's arrogant. I don't really know.
I just meant like the technical comedy term.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so that's sort of how that goes, and there's like circusy music underneath it. But yeah, so at some point when he says he's a father, even though Paolo is trying to say, no, I'm not a father, he's like, oh, well, I want to confess, I want to use this opportunity to confess my sins, and Paolo's like, that's really not necessary. It's not the time. You should go to church for that. Like, this is not the right place, and it doesn't matter. And he keeps, doing all this arrogant bullshit, like smoking in the car where, the priest or father or whatever, he's like trying to like give subtle hints about not smoking by, coughing. He's like,
right, or trying to open a window or something.
And then he says, hey, that sign says, you're not supposed to smoke. And then Benigni's like, oh, I've been meaning to get rid of that sign. And he just throws the no smoking sign out the window. Like that kind of humor throughout the segment. And then he goes into like this long monologue about his sexual deviancy with pumpkins and sheep.
And his brother's wife.
Who bent
like, over,
and it reminded him of both the pumpkins and the sheep. I mean, it's all like constructed well in terms of like a bit, but it's nothing.
He's just like miming the actions and making noises.
Yeah. So I mean, it's decent, but at this point, I mean, it's not. It'll probably be funnier in 1991, perhaps. Or if you have like just a different mindset, it just didn't hit home this time. But in the meantime, Bishop's like having a hard time breathing, and he's like not able to say anything. It seems like he's waiting for his turn to talk to even mention that he's having medical problems.
Yeah, well, he takes some pills out, like
he tries to take some pills out to help with his heart.
Yeah.
And then like they hit a bump or something, and they fly out of his hand.
Yeah. But I was also thinking, take 2 more pills, because he had multiple pills in that bottle. You
would think so. You would think you'd have more pills in that bottle, but, it wouldn't make for a good sequence if everything worked out fine.
I know. I mean, I know he probably was like, I'm not going to reach down and try and look for them. But you're not going to take 2 more?
Well, he was trying to reach down a little bit.
Yeah, but he kind of gave up right away because he's like, forget it, because it's like too dark or it's like messy down there.
Or he just couldn't reach. I don't know how cramped it is, too.
But wouldn't you just open the bottle again and take 2 more pills out?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe those are the last ones. Maybe those last ones.
But that pill bottle looked like there was more in there.
I don't know. You'll have to ask Jarmusch if you ever meet him.
30 years. If there's like a Q&A,
yeah.
I'll ask him something from this movie.
There you go. But yeah, while that's all happening with him dropping the medicine, we get introduced to 2 hookers in drag, or transvestites is how they're credited in the movie. That Roberto's character just stops and says hi to, and says, "Hey, look who I have in the cab. I have a bishop in the cab." And they're like, Bishop.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the point of that was.
I think to startle the bishop even more, but
I don't know. Is this like a weird little
non
sequitur?
They seemed as if like Roberto Benigni's character was like a customer of theirs.
Yeah,
they knew him really well.
They definitely knew each other really well, and I don't know if
or
it was because
they just knew each other because he probably
they all
sees
work
them.
night shift.
Yeah, they see the same people every night.
Yeah,
and he's just probably like, oh,
yeah,
kind of like coworkers in a way. I don't know,
but I don't know. I don't understand the whole point of it. But at the end, basically, the bishop dies, right? And the actor's job, Paolo Bonicelli's job, is solely to slowly die with like very expressive eyes, and like he's perfect for that role because he has an extremely expressive
those big eyes,
face, and you can see him blinking when like at the end he gets propped up on a bench because he dies in the cab, and Benigni figures it out once he finally stops talking. And so, he drags him out of the cab, props him up on a bench because he doesn't want to be known. He doesn't want to go to hell for sure because he killed
a priest
with all of his dirty confessions. So that was his concern, and so he leaves him on a bench and like trying to shut his eyes, but his eyes pop back open. There's a little bit of extra.
So he puts his sunglasses
on to end the scene.
Right.
So there was the most going on in this scene, and definitely the most words per minute in this one too. And then we go into Helsinki, which is a far departure in terms of tone. We're at 5 a.m. There's snow on the ground, and again they're going around in circles around a statue. But the cab driver, Mika, is just circling it, yawning, waiting for some sort of fare. Mm-hmm. So he gets called to 3 guys who are basically sleeping up against each other while waiting because they're all drunk. One of them was fully asleep, still passed out drunk because he lost his job. His new car got smashed. His 16-year-old daughter was pregnant. His wife wants a divorce. Everything's wrong, so he had a terrible day.
Right.
And the 2 friends are consoling him, and the cab driver Mika is like, well, it could be much worse.
Right.
And they say, how could it possibly be? And he goes into his own story.
His own sad story, yeah.
A premature baby that his wife had, and how he was going to deny that baby love, and because if it's just going to die, then I'm not going to pretend to love, and goes in this big long monologue that anyway, that's virtually all that happens in that one. And I don't know, I don't want to seem like insensitive, but I mean, these are fake characters. Right, so, but I mean, like, it was not intriguing. It didn't have anything to really pull you in. Even the storytelling from Mika wasn't told in a very captivating way for me, personally. Like, yes, it's definitely a very sad story, but that's not really how you want to end your movie. Right. I wouldn't think so.
At this because it just ends after that. Well, it goes after this vignette ends. It goes back to the clock thing, doesn't it?
I don't think so.
I know it does.
I don't remember anymore.
I thought it I don't know.
It shows the
I just know that
passed
they
out drunk guy sitting in the curb, and it's dawn, and 2 factory workers come out and say hi to him, and then go off to work. And then, assumingly at the same job that he just got fired from.
Right.
And then either
and
they
then
go
the
back
Tom Waits music comes back on.
Yeah, and either credits roll or the clocks happen and then credits roll. I'm not sure which. So, yeah, that's the not so brief rundown of all the different stories. But I think the order matters. Like, it's sort of like, I'm not a huge music guy per se, but I mean, I think it's like formulating an album. Like, you want to have a strong opener, you need to have a strong closer, and then like mix in the emotions and the tones in between. I think you could have easily started in LA and ended in New York by going across the Pacific instead of...
So going the other way around.
Yeah, go west instead of east.
So go LA, Helsinki, Rome, Paris, then New York.
Yeah. I think so.
Instead of...
Because then you have like a decent story, you have the downer, then you can come back to it from Rome with a high comedy, like switch up the tone. Or since Rome and Paris are both 4 a.m.
Do Paris, Rome, or whatever?
Do Paris, Rome, New York. I mean, obviously, like, the geography is a little bit off in that case, but you're still in the same time zone.
Yeah.
It really depends how much it really matters to do it in a geographical time zone order or not, too. Obviously, that was part of the point.
Yeah, I think, I was just trying to do the time zone.
Yeah.
Because it usually starts from west going all the way east.
I'm just saying that
like,
hurt it.
You know. Yeah, I understand it.
But with that said...
Instead of going back in time, because then it would be like going back in time in a way.
Yeah, I guess. That's true.
Because it would be 7 p.m. LA, and then there'll be like 5 a.m.
Or maybe the answer is just to...
It'd be 5, 4...
Change the location for some of those stories. Like,
10
why does the Helsinki story have to take place in Helsinki? Why does the Paris story have to take place in Paris? So,
I mean, the Paris story could have just been exactly what the Helsinki story was or something.
Yeah, they could have just swapped those stories and kept the same... I don't know, whatever. Clearly the movie worked to some degree and it got some...
The last two is when I started to, like,
Drop off
and be like, okay, this is getting too long.
Yeah. Because it's about a 2-hour movie total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the last two vignettes were also the longest because after the Paris one, going into the Rome one, I was checking the time and I was like, we have an hour left.
Yeah, you could be right. And like Helsinki
I was checking the time because I was like, how much do we have left? Because I don't want to see this and then another one.
Because, Helsinki had no reason to be as long as it was.
Right.
There
was
not enough substance in there.
Could have made the New York one an extra 15 minutes or something. Yeah. I don't
know. So I think we're probably largely in agreement in terms of order of what we liked. So we both agreed New York was best.
Yes.
So what, LA second, maybe?
Oh, I liked New York and Paris. LA was okay to me.
Okay. Yeah, I think that maybe...
The last two, I didn't care for.
Makes sense.
Because that's where I started to get annoyed, and then Helsinki was just like a very sad, depressing, like, downer. I mean...
Yeah.
It just got, like... It went from, like, crazy zany to, like, hardcore serious.
Right. It is very weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, Rome... I understand what it was going for. I think it had a lot of potential, and I think New York had a little bit of potential, or not New York, LA had some potential too, but it's just the performances in both of them kind of deterred. So I don't know, whatever. I don't know if I can fully agree on order. New York, and then, maybe Paris, and then maybe Rome, LA, Helsinki, but any given day I might change my mind. So, yeah, I think that's about it. We can talk about some of the cast and crew now. We talked a little bit about that. Jim Jarmusch, I think we all sort of know who he is. If you're in the independent film scene at all, we talked about Down by Law. He's done Stranger Than Paradise, Coffee and Cigarettes, Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai, Mystery Train. He has 6 Independent Spirit nominations, 0 wins, and no other award nominations of note. Frederick Elmes, he's the cinematographer of this movie. I mentioned him because he won the Independent Spirit Award for this movie, for his cinematography. He's also won for Wild at Heart. He was nominated for Blue Velvet. He was the cinematographer for The Ice Storm and Eraserhead. He has a 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award from the Association of Cinematographers. He has also an Emmy winner for that Riz Ahmed miniseries, The Night Of, that was on HBO. So, very accomplished, and again, I think he did a wonderful job of like incorporating different styles in what could be a very samey looking thing. That was fantastic. Tom Waits won't spend a whole lot of time on him. Again, he did 1991 score for this. This is his only score in 1991, but we'll see him again in some other stuff. In terms of music, though, since we're talking about his music side of things, Oscar nominated in 1983 for the music for One from the Heart. He has 2 Grammy wins, 5 nominations, and he is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as of 2011. We talked about Winona Ryder a little bit. She was an Oscar nomination for Age of Innocence and Little Women. She won the Golden Globe for Age of Innocence. And she's been nominated for Mermaids and Stranger Things. She is also an MTV Movie Awards Best Kiss nominee 3 times over. Can you guess the movies?
Edward Scissorhands?
No.
No?
That's too early. They didn't.
They
remember,
didn't,
this 1991, 92 was the first year.
Okay,
of the
so
MTV
Little
Awards.
Women?
No.
Who? Dracula.
Yes, Dracula is one of them.
I don't know what the other.
We got Reality Bites.
Okay, all right.
And
Ethan
How to
Hawke.
Make an American Quilt.
Oh, okay.
Oddly enough. So, she's been in a ton of stuff. I think this is her only 1991 movie, though. But you know who she is. Jenna Rollins, Oscar nominated for Gloria and A Woman Under the Influence. Worked a lot with,
Her husband?
Yes, her husband. I'm blanking on the name. Why am I blanking on the name?
John Cassavetes.
There you go, John Cassavetes. I had like a S name in my head for some reason. John Cassavetes, worked with him a lot. She's an Emmy winner. She's in a 1991 movie that is not currently on our list, called Face of a Stranger, in which she won an Emmy for. I could not find a watchable version of that movie, so that's why it's not on our list. But if that ever comes up, or if you know of one, then let us know. She'll be in 2 more 1991 movies, Once Around and Ted and Venus. Helmet was played by Armin Mueller-Stahl. He was one of my favorite. Both of the performances in this were my favorite. He's in the 1991 movie Kafka, and also another one that's not on our list called Bronstein's Children. I could not find a watchable version of that either. He was nominated for an Oscar for the movie Shine, that Jeffrey Rush movie from like 1997.
Okay.
Biography of some musician I don't remember because I never saw it. But he's also been in things like The Game, the X-Files movie, and Theodore Rex. And Eastern Promises, if you want to end on a well-known movie. Giancarlo Esposito, we all know from Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, and The Mandalorian. He has Emmy nominations for those. He has an Independent Spirit Award nomination for the movie Fresh. He's been in a bunch of Spike Lee movies. He was in the Jungle Book remake, season of Homicide: Life on the Streets. He'll be in the 1991 movie Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man. And I also learned that he is he is one of the people who sang the theme song to the Electric Company, the 1970s like PBS show.
Oh, okay.
But he was not in the cast. He was just like one of the people who was singing the theme song. So, there you go. Rosie Perez, real quick. Oscar and Golden Globe nomination for Fearless. She was a 3-time Emmy nomination for her choreography for In Living Color, which was interesting to see. But yeah, this is the only 1991 movie that she's in, I believe. Known for Do the Right Thing, White Man Can't Jump, Birds of Prey. She was also in another Jarmusch movie called The Dead Don't Die more recently. Isaac de Bunkole, the driver in Paris, he's in Down to Earth and Ghost Dog and Coffee and Cigarettes as well. He's in Diving Bell and the Butterfly. He's one of the elders in Black Panther. So he's in the Marvel universe. He's I looked at the picture. He's the one like with the green plate in his lip.
Okay.
So when you watch that movie, that's him. It's interesting. I just want to take a little side note. Like, it was interesting to see, a character from the Ivory Coast. I had a roommate in college from the Ivory Coast. So it was, I don't know. I wish I would have taken a little more time to get to know that guy, because I only was roommates with him for like half a semester, basically, or for like a semester, sort of. And like our schedules did not really align all that much. He was awake when I was sleeping. He was sleeping when I was awake. The things I remember about him is that he basically played 3 different albums, right? He played DMX.
Okay.
He played
R.I.P.
Dr. Dre Chronic 2000.
Okay.
And he played a couple songs from a Metallica album. Huh. That's like the only music he ever played in full blast. But yeah, like we talked a little bit, and I, taught him some English slang and stuff, and he talked about why he came to America and whatnot. I learned a little bit about his culture, but like our schedules didn't align all that much. But I also remember he overslept for one of his finals, and I was like trying to wake him up. I'm like wake up, you gotta go to your class. He's like, what time is it? Like, it's like 10 o'clock. He's like, I'll just tell him I thought the class was at night. And he went back to sleep.
At night?
Yeah. I'll just tell him that in Africa we do our finals at nighttime, and I got confused. So, like, he had, like, these built-in excuses in his head already.
Did it work, though?
As far as I know, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, they bought it. But yeah, he was a cool guy that I did not get to spend a lot of time with. So yeah, that's my own personal pausing on the credits by way of another Ivory Coast person. Beatrice Dalle, the blind woman. She's a César nomination, the French awards for Betty Blue. She was in the French version of the horror movie Inside, which was remade with what's his face? Ethan Hawke. I'm having trouble with names.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah. And then Mika was played by an actor named Matti Pelonpa. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that name. He did a lot of stuff in Europe. A lot of these actors don't have a lot of U.S. crossover, so I don't have a lot to say about them. But he was working regularly since the late 60s in his home country, and then passed away in 1995 from a heart attack. So not too many U.S. credits that I could recognize, but very steady, well-known actor in that region. And that's all I have for the cast and credits. In terms of awards, the only one that they had was the Best Cinematography Award for Frederick Elmes at the Film Independent Spirit Awards. That's the only thing I could find of note. Should we go on to true crime and pop culture?
Yes. I have 3 stories. 2 are connected.
How many time zones are we covering?
What do you mean
Let's get out the globe.
Oh. Well, we're going to be going back and forth in time, I guess. Okay. Like some chronology.
Let's spin the globe.
It's going to be about 2 different women in this movie.
Okay.
So nothing happened the week that this movie was released, but I'm going to talk about some crimes that happened with. One is obvious, the other one I didn't even know.
Okay.
But well, I'm going to talk about Wynona Ryder. But before I get to Wynona Ryder, I'm going to talk about a murder and kidnapping of a young girl. This did not happen in 91, but this is going to connect to Wynona's story when I get to it.
Okay.
So it's, I'm just going to do a small little summary of what happened. and I listened to, there are several podcasts about this case, and I only listened to one just to know a little bit more of what happened, because I didn't even hear about this. But this is a murder and kidnapping of a 12-year-old girl. Her name is Polly Klaas. On October 1st, 1993, 12-year-old Polly Klaas was kidnapped from her home in Petaluma, California during a sleepover. And this made nationwide news of her kidnapping because the kidnapping was on 2020 and America's Most Wanted. It was, people were like, her parents were like, we just want her home or safe. We want any information about like her whereabouts. Mm-hmm. I mean, it did turn out that she was murdered. Like, they found her body like a few months later. That case is a little bit interesting because around that time, just like the technology wasn't all that great. Like, even like getting blood and, like DNA samples, like even in the early 90s, that was still not a thing.
Yeah.
So it was hard nowadays, if this happened, you can probably find a small child like immediately. Or maybe, I don't know, quicker
it depends on the circumstances.
Quicker than what happened 30-ish years ago. So it was just like, there was the case is interesting, and you can Google the murder and kidnap of Polly Klaas, and the podcast I listened to, it's from one called Morbid, and it was just, a lot of lack of communication. There was problems with like the APB getting from one county to the next. They weren't like crossing their wires, so no one heard about it, and it was just shitty all around.
Sure.
So now I'm going to get into Wynona Ryder. On December 12, 2001, Ryder was arrested on shoplifting charges in Beverly Hills, California. She was accused of stealing over $5,000 worth of designer clothes and accessories at a Saks Fifth Avenue department store. Officers said that they found $5,560 worth of stolen merchandise, which include a cashmere sweater from Marc Jacobs, which was $760, various Frederick Elmes hair adornments worth about $600, and several pairs of socks, including a cashmere pair from Donna Karan worth $80. They were both in, like, all these items were inside 2 shopping bags and then a garment bag that Wynona had. She signed 2 civil demands in the security offices of the store before she was arrested by the Beverly Hills Police Department, binding her to pay for the stolen and surrendered merchandise as permitted under California's statute for civil recovery for shoplifting. So LA District Attorney Stephen Cooley assembled a team of 8 prosecutors and filed 4 felony charges against her.
Okay.
For this stupid ass, like,
right.
Like, I don't know, who even cares? Like, at this point, I'm like, I don't know. Negotiations failed to produce a plea bargain at the end of 2002. The prosecution was not ready to offer her like a no contest plea or even misdemeanor charges. So, like last week or 2 weeks ago when I was talking about Pee Wee Herman, he was able to get like a no plea just by doing like some,
PSAs
civil
and whatnot.
PSA, yeah. But, they were hard on her for because she's a woman. I don't know. Basically, she was accused. Okay, during trial, this was in like at the end of 2002. She was accused of using drugs during trial, including oxycodone, diazepam, and Vicodin without valid prescriptions. She was convicted of grand theft, shoplifting, and vandalism, but she was acquitted on felony charge of burglary. And I was trying to find out, like, why vandalism? Mm-hmm. I couldn't really find it. I looked at like 3 different articles. One is from New York Times, another the Huffington Post, and then like I did even just Google search like why vandalism.
It could be something as simple as like she threw clothes all around or something when
Or like she haphazardly just like muffled some shirts into a bag and they were like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a really weird.
A lot of these names that we have like common associations with are
To me it sounds
thrown about sometimes.
Like vandalism is you're like breaking some windows or something. Like she didn't do that.
You're destroying things or defacing property and whatnot.
Yeah,
it could be as simple as like, oh, you dropped this.
Right, you dropped these pile of sweaters on the floor.
You did this intentionally in a certain order, and so that's vandalism.
Right. Okay, and then, so she was acquitted. She was charged for those 3: grand theft, shoplifting, vandalism. She was acquitted for burglary. In December 2002, she was sentenced to 3 years of probation, 480 hours of community service, $3,700 in fines, and then $6,355 in restitution to the Saks Fifth Avenue stores, and she was ordered to attend psychological and drug counseling. Okay, during her trial, like, I'm going to go back to the first story that I talked about.
Sure.
During the time that the 12-year-old girl was missing, Polly Klaas, this was in 93 now, going back in time. During the trial, Wynona did a lot of like activism. Her attorney was like, she's not a bad person. She's done this, this, and this. During that time when that girl was missing, Polly Klaas, Wynona Ryder, this is when Wynona was like, 22, I think.
Sure.
Ryder offered a $200,000 reward for that 12-year-old girl who was kidnapped. She was helping for her safe return to her family. She gave the family $200,000 to find her. And it's because Wynona is from that same city as where she was taken from, Petaluma, California.
Oh, okay.
That's the reason why, basically.
Gotcha.
So that's why I talked about that first one. So on June 18th, 2004, Superior Court Judge Eldon Fox reviewed Ryder's probation report and noted that she had served her 480 hours of community service and the felonies were reduced to misdemeanors. She remained on probation until December 2005, and Ryder explained in an interview magazine that the incident occurred during a difficult time in her life when she was clinically depressed. She also stated that heavy painkiller medication that a physician she was going to was practicing, they said, quote, quackery, had prescribed her, significantly clouded her judgment. So, the ones that she was supposedly prescribed.
Yeah, all those, like, painkiller number type of things.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were not valid. So the doctor who prescribed the medications that she was receiving at the time subsequently had his medical license revoked for unethically catering to the demands of the wealthy. This is a quote. The demands and wealthy and famous drug seekers. I don't know, I just thought that was
it's probably still
weird.
Very common.
You're right.
That type of thing.
And another thing, so going back to that first case about Polly Klaas, the young girl that was murdered, after the credits, I haven't seen this movie in a really long time, but at the end credits, I guess Wynona Ryder, she stars as Jo in the 1994 movie, the adaptation of Little Women. Oh, okay. And she dedicated her performance to In Klaas's memory because Little Women was Klaas's favorite book.
Oh, okay.
And so now I'm going to talk about another actress in this movie who I didn't know anything about because I didn't know her at all. It's Beatrice Dalle, who played the blind woman in the Paris segment of this movie.
And who is not really blind.
She's not blind in real
rolled
life.
Her irises in the back of her head for most of her time on screen.
Yeah. So I looked up a few articles about her controversies, and I just did like a bullet point type of chronology of what she has been up to in the past almost 30 years. All right, starting with like her personal life has been controversial. She was arrested on several occasions for shoplifting, drug possession, and assault. She was arrested for assaulting a Parisian meter maid who was ticketing her car in a handicapped parking place in 1998. She was declared an, quote, undesirable immigrant by American ambassador to France and denied work permit to portray Bruce Willis's wife in The Sixth Sense. And the reason for her status was her 2 arrests for alleged cocaine possession in Miami during the filming of the movie The Blackout. That was in 1997. In January 2005, while making a film about prison life in Brest, B-R-E-S-T. That's where she's from, Brest, France.
Okay.
I'm going to assume that's how you say it.
I'm sure we're getting a lot of foreign pronunciations wrong, but yeah, we'll go with that one.
Dahl met Ginal Metziani, who was serving a 12-year prison sentence for assaulting and raping his ex-girlfriend. She married him in prison, while he was in prison, after visiting him on 24 random occasions. Okay. Like, she visited him 24 times, and then she's like, okay, I'm gonna marry you. And she spoke on his behalf at hearings to get him out on early release. She said the marriage was, quote, a complete disaster once Metziani was released from prison, and their divorce was finalized in 2014. That was a long time, because this was in January 2005.
Wow. So, that took a long time to...
Yeah. In 2018, Dahl was criticized for celebrating the escape from prison of a violent criminal serving a 25-year sentence for a robbery in which a police officer was killed. She was celebrating, that. She was interviewed on a French TV program called Divan, D-I-V-A-N. She said that when she used to work in a morgue. She didn't say when, but when she was younger. Mm-hmm. And she and her friends sold body parts of corpses. And she also said that while on acid, she ate a dead man's ear.
Nice. Okay.
And also in 2018, this was an article from The Guardian that I found. She stated that she, quotes, loves Christ because he invented bondage.
Okay.
This is the thing. This is all I found about her, Beatrice Dalle. And then a little 1991 tidbit is that she was in a music video for Aha's video of the song Move to Memphis, which I've never heard of this song. Aha only has one song in my mind.
I think they did one for the Olympics as well that I've maybe heard.
Okay.
So interesting. It seems like she's always trying to find the new way to be edgy. And
trying to be
controversial
edgy
and stay in the news by
saying some messed up shit. I am not going to do anything TV related because this was like too long.
Sure.
But
a lot of true crime.
And I was thinking, like, I did find there was an SNL episode, but I can talk about that if there's another, movie released the same week, on October 4th. But the top songs for this week was the top U.S. song was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, Good Vibrations.
Okay.
And the top UK song was
Bryan Adams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything I do it for you.
Well, Bryan Adams never got his own Sega CD game like Marky Mark did, so.
But his song has been number one for at least a full-on year.
Plus 3 more years, it feels.
And the top number one R&B song was Vanessa Williams' Running Back to You.
Okay, so on rankings and ratings, on your 1 to 5 star scale, where would you put Night on Earth?
I would give it a 3.
Okay. On my 0 to 4 star scale, I'm probably going to say, I think I'm going to give it a 3.5, which seems kind of high. But it's one of those things where if I think about it more, I might go down to a 3, but I'm going 3.5 because I like what it was accomplishing up until that last segment. I think that's sort of where it kind of fell apart a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
But I was largely engaged for the most part. Every movie's worth watching once. Would you watch it again?
I would watch the New York segment over and over again, but not any other ones.
I get that. Yeah, I think if this, I don't know, this seems like the type of thing that could be adapted into like a TV series or something like that.
Yeah, like they could do an update because, now that there's Uber or whatever, they can do like an update.
They could do a similar type of a thing. Yeah, I'm with you in the New York thing. I think I'd watch certain segments as a whole. I don't think there's anything that really is gained from watching it as a whole. So watch your favorite segments. But if you out there want to watch Night on Earth, as of this recording in May 2021, it's available on HBO Max, the Criterion Channel, digital rental, VHS, and DVD. As always, check your local listings. As for us, you can listen to us on all of your major podcasting platforms. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends. It really helps us out a lot. You can email us at 1991movierewind@gmail.com. Of course, you can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Just search 1991 Movie Rewind or go to 1991movierewind.com for the full list of movies, along with show notes and more. Next week, we're talking about Life Stinks. That's available on HBO Max, digital rental, VHS, DVD. We will see you then.
Thanks.